So here's a news story for you. The Golden State Warriors are really good. So good and so talented. And with so much firepower. The Rockets are going to have to do a lot of things well to win this series. And I think there's one player in particular that could really mess some things up for Golden State in this thing. And that's the center, Clint Capela, a guy who's been balling out in these playoffs for Houston. And we remember the record with him and James Harden and Chris Paul is insanely good. And there's a few things he can do really well. He is one of the best lob players in the NBA. He's fit in really well and embraced just screening and rolling with James Harden and Chris Paul. If we remember Dwight Howard and how he did not want to do that with James Harden, well, maybe he should have second-guessed himself there. He's also one of the better offensive rebounders in the NBA, and just in terms of overall effort, Capela is one of the best hustle guys in the league as well. And he's also emerged as one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA over the course of this season as well. A lot of that due to his ability to just move along the floor very well. And we'll dive into detail on all these things and how it's going to affect the Warriors. But one interesting thing you may notice is that in all these clips, he's going up against the Warriors' opposing centers, all the guys that he's going to potentially go up against in this series. I think he's by far and away the best conventional center here. I don't think Jordan Bell has much of a chance against him. I think David West a few years ago could have had a chance, but now the fact that you're strong and can hit mid-range jumpers isn't going to be enough. Kevon Looney is the guy who's actually been playing the most for them at the center spot. I just don't think he's on Capela's level on either side of the floor. And if JaVale McGee plays in this series at all, then I think he's going to get eaten alive by Clint Capela as well. And you're noticing that Zaza's not here. That's because he's pretty much just not in the rotation, which means you could see a lot of Draymond Green at center. This is the real Warriors team. I believe they're calling the lineup now the Hampton 5, which is an awful nickname, and the small ball lineup of death is much better. But we all know what the lineup is, right? And let's say this iteration of the Warriors plays, 20 to 25 minutes a game, maybe even more than that if Steve Kerr's not messing around. I think Clint Capela could cause some issues for Draymond, and it starts on the offensive boards. Draymond may play bigger than he actually is, part of that because he's strong as hell, he has great anticipation, and his arms are super long. But when it comes to just getting rebounds, we have seen him get overpowered at times, and Capela gets up there. And if he's able to just box out Draymond consistently, he can get Houston some extra buckets. And with how good of a defensive team Golden State is with Draymond at center, getting yourself a few extra possessions and a few extra fouls or just buckets around the rim, tip-ins and that type of stuff, that's huge. It also does not allow Golden State to get out in transition, which I think is a key thing for this series as well. So in that way, Capela can be huge for them. So with some of those James Harden step-back threes that maybe don't go in, but they're still able to get some offense out of it, that's awesome. The next thing we got to talk about, though, is Capela's ability to move along the floor on defense. It was an interesting thing in the Jazz series where, Gobert is the elite rim protector, but Capela is so good at defending along the perimeter and cutting across screens and being able to actually stay in front of some of the perimeter-oriented guys that the Warriors have. That could prove to be more of an impactful skill set than Rudy Gobert, who's the best defensive player in the NBA, right? And the Warriors, they move the ball around a lot. So to have a center who's going to have no problem just stepping outside and disrupting some of the things that Golden State wants to do, you got to have that. Because if they're just able to freely move along the floor and, have their handoff plays and have someone cutting to the basket and there's going to be no real resistance for that, then you're not going to have a chance against the Warriors. But I think Capela's mobility will give them a real chance. Now, the one thing that'll be interesting is if Draymond Green can make him pay for kind of roaming around the floor, because if Draymond's going to knock his threes down, or if he's at least going to go off the dribble and beat Capela on closeouts, then that will make Clint stay at home on Draymond a little bit. So that'll be an interesting counter to see if that develops. But still, if Draymond is not able to force Capela to stay attached to him, and he's able to just really just muck things up all around defensively, that could be a really big difference, you know? This Golden State team has always been susceptible to getting beat by size, but it's never totally been enough. Now, with the team Capela has around him, well, potentially. There's also his ability to switch. I mean, I think he's going to end up on Steph Curry a decent amount of times this series, and Curry likes to go to the step back against opposing big guys, but Capela's length and instincts on defense may allow him to really have a chance in those situations. Can we say the same thing if he gets switched on to Kevin Durant? I don't know, but there's a chance that he's going to be one of the few centers in the NBA who can switch on to the Warriors, guards, and KD when they do pick and rolls, and they'll be all right. So Capela is going to be a big deal in this series, you know? If he can grab offensive rebounds, not allow the Warriors to get out on fast breaks, which can lead to blowouts very quickly, get Houston a few extra possessions, be a role guy for Chris Paul and James Harden, and then use his mobility on defense, could definitely be the deciding factor in a playoff series that is very, very close. Anyway, that'll do it. New podcast in the description. I answered a bunch of Twitter questions. Some things were related to the NBA, some things were not. And then I gave my full review, spoiler-free first, of God of War.